Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome to our fourth lesson of our simplified Tajweed series, which is a series of Tajweed lessons introduced by Quran University uniquely designed Quran learning management system with the purpose of introducing Tajweed in a modern and easy approach. Through this series of lessons, you will be introduced to Tajweed rules using a unique, modern and innovative approach to teach Tajweed that utilizes the color codes of Mus'haf al-Tajweed as a common denominator that links those lessons to Tajweed rules. With such approach, we aim to make the understanding of Tajweed rules much easier and to practically help you to apply those rules while reading the Quran. So let's start, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, with our topic for today, which is vowels and harakat. Our objectives of this lesson are to enable you to realize the vowels, huruf al-illah, and their articulation, makharijuha, and to realize those vowels that are extendable, ما يرد منها, and those that are not, and identify the situations at which vowels are considered mad letters versus situations at which vowels are considered lean letters, to understand the concept of haraka and sukoon, to realize the relationship between vowels with different harakat, fatha, dhamma, and kasra, and to understand the meaning and definition of shadda, and to understand the meaning of tanween and its relationship with the noon sakina. Let's start with the basics of vowels and harakat. There are three vowels in the Arabic language: alif, waw, and ya. Alif, waw, and ya. Vowels articulation. In the past, linguists had categorized letters with regard to articulation into definite articulation letters as those with clear articulation points, and estimated articulation letters as those whose articulation points were vague. These were viewed as if they were arising from the cavity beyond the larynx, and they called that the jawf, and they called those letters al-huruf al-jawfiyya, jawf letters. Nowadays, the actual articulation points are more clear and obvious as we have modern tools that enable us to define the real anatomical articulation points. The vowels are here, and this is the larynx, and the jawf letters come from below the larynx. Let's start with the first letter, which is the alif. Alif is the key and major vowel. It is generated as the exhaled air leaves the lungs, passing through the larynx, causing minor vibrations of the vocal cords, and traveling through the airway, exiting the open mouth without any significant resistance. And that's why the alif is pronounced with an open mouth. So open your mouth and try to pronounce the alif and watch how it passes through the airway. Open your mouth and say Now, if we instead of opening the mouth, we purse the lips while pronouncing the alif, that alif sound would be modified into a waw sound. Pursing the lips produced the ooh, a different vowel. Similarly, elevating the lower jaw while pronouncing the alif modifies the alif into a ya sound, and that happens with the elevation of the lower jaw. E. So we have learned that there are three vowels: the alif, the waw, and the ya, and let's compare them here. The alif takes place by generated at the vibration of the vocal cords at the larynx and the parting of the two jaws and opening of the lips. Opening of the mouth, okay, opening of the lips, parting of the two jaws. Now the waw, on the other hand, also is generated by vibration at the larynx and slight parting of the jaws, but the main thing is pursing of the lips. Now the ya, same thing, vibration at the vocal cords at the larynx, slight parting of the jaws, but the most important reason for producing the ya is elevation of the lower jaw. E. You see, the lower jaw is a bit raised, and the lips are not as pursed as in the waw, and are not as open as in the a. So, with a, the lips and the mouth are open. With oo, the lips are pursed. while in E, the lower jaw is elevated. Now, let's learn what the haraka means. Haraka means vowelization, which is appending a letter with a vowel. Let's start by defining some Arabic words' meanings. Haraka means movement or motion, while sukoon means rest. So the word sukoon is a noun that means rest, stillness, or statics, while the word haraka is a noun that means motion or flow or kinetics. Let's look at this letter ba. It is static. It's not able to move from its place. So we call that this ba is sakin, has sukoon. Sakin is an adjective that describes an object that is still, stagnant, or static. On the other hand, if we take this ba and we see that it's moving, then we call it mutaharrik. Mutaharrik is an adjective that describes an object that is moving, flowing, or kinetic. Now let's look at the sukoon, the rest a bit more. This ba, is trapped at its articulation point, and it is standing still, resting at that point of articulation, the lips, and not moving out of it. So the letter ba would be imprisoned at the articulation point and would remain resting there. That's why we call it sakin and give it the sifa, the adjective of sukoon. On the contrary of sukoon, there is the haraka, the movement. If we took that second letter imprisoned at the lips at the articulation point and add to it a vowel, an a, after the ba, so it becomes ba. Ba would be mobile. It will have motion. It would be released to the outside of the mouth and be awarded the freedom to move by adding the alif vowel just after it. So it is said to be awarded the haraka, which is movement or ability to move. And since we have three vowels, then there are the possibilities of three harakas, three movements. First one, if haraka, kinetics of a letter, is associated with an exhaled air flowing towards the articulation of the vowel a, then we call that haraka ba. We call it fatha. If the haraka, kinetics of a letter, is associated with an exhaled air flowing towards the articulation of the vowel oo, then we call that haraka dhamma. If the haraka, kinetics of letter, is associated with an exhaled air flowing towards the articulation of a vowel e, b, we call that haraka kasra. Now, the fatha, we take that a to symbolize fatha. We take the a and put it on top of the ba, and it will look like this. A will be put there and a bit tilted, and that tells us that this ba has a fatha, ba. On the other hand, if we take the ba and put a waw on it, it will tell us that this ba has a dhamma. And if we take the same letter and we put a ya, but underneath it, and a bit modify that to a tilted dash, we call it kasra. So we can represent the fatha by an alif, which is oblique, and the dhamma with a waw on top of the letter, and the kasra with a dash below the letter. Let's learn more about the way we pronounce the fatha, the dhamma, and the kasra. Let's start with pronouncing the fatha. The fatha, let's take an example, the letter ta, and we'll put after that an alif, a, ta. They are pronounced ta. Now, if we shorten the alif, rather than having it with that wavelength, we make it shorter, then it's the same thing as the ta, but the fatha would sound like the ta. So it is the same ta, but with a shorter alif, and that's what gives us the fatha. Same thing applies for the dhamma. So to pronounce the dhamma, we take a ta plus a oo, wow, and it will sound like tu. Now, if we shorten the oo part, the wow, it will sound like a dhamma, tu. So tu is a ta with dhamma compared to tu, which is a ta with a wow. طو طو. Now let's pronounce the kasra. Kasra is similarly a ta plus a ya. Ta, e, ti. Now if we shorten the ya, it will sound like the kasra. Ti. So the ti is ti with a shortened ya. Let's quickly revise. Ta, ta. Tu, tu. Ti, ti. In this table, we'll conclude what we have just learned over the last few minutes. We've learned that there is a term called Harakat, which literally means motion, flow, kinetics, versus another term called Sukun, which literally means rest, stillness, statics. And in the Arabic linguistic terminology, Harakat means vowelization, that is, appending the letter with a short vowel. Sukun, on the other hand, means non-vowelization. The Harakat has three subtypes: Fatha, Dhamma, and Kasra. Now, the vowel added with the Fatha is the A, the vowel added with the Dhamma is the U, and the vowel added with the Kasra is the E. The writing expression Tashkil of Fatha, it's presented as a small dash above the letter, a small A that is tilted, while the Dhamma is represented as a small Waw above the letter, and the Kasra represented as a small dash below the letter. The Sukun is represented as a zero, small circle above the letter. An example of the Fatha is the letter Ba with, as we said, the vowel A to be Ba with Fatha. Ba with the letter U presents the Ba with Dhamma. Ba with the vowel E is actually the Ba with Kasra, while the Ba with a circle is represented as the Ba with Sukun. In the previous slide, we've learned that adding a Harakat can be named vowelization, which means adding a small vowel at the end of the letter. Now, any Arabic letter would have four possibilities. They can have the vowel at the end. They can be vowelized, giving a characteristic of a vowel movement, Harakat, to become Fatha or Dhamma or Kasra, or to be devowelized, which means that they could be deprived from such mobility, and that is what we call the character of Sukun. Ba with Sukun, a letter with Sukun. Now, this is the case for all these letters except the Alif. The Alif can only have one status, which is Sukun, and would have nothing but Sukun. Alif cannot be vowelized, cannot be given neither Fatha nor Dhamma nor Kasra. It is always Sakina. Now we're going to introduce the Tanween. Tanween comes from the letter N, Noon. So Tanween means appending a letter with a Noon. Tanween is a verb that means adding the Noon, N. Let's take a noun. Kitab in Arabic means book. So if we take Kitab and add to it an N at the end, it becomes Kitabun. This process of adding a Noon at the end of the noun is basically the Tanween. So adding a Noon, N, at the end of any noun is called Tanween. The Noon Sakina added to the end of the noun, book, Kitab, is Tanween. It's a unique feature for this letter of the alphabet, the Noon, and when it is having Sukun, we call it Noon Sakina. And the Tanween, as we've said, is an extra Noon Sakina added to the end of names only, and it's written in the format of duplicate Fatha or duplicate Kasra or duplicate Dhamma. And why do we do that? Because depending on the status of the last letter of the name, if it is having a Fatha, the Tanween would be a Tanween with Fatha. If it is having a Kasra, the Tanween would be a Tanween with Kasra. If it is having a Dhamma, the Tanween would be Tanween with Dhamma. Let's see. Kitab could be Kitaban, Kitabun, Kitabin. The difference is here we have tanween with fatha, double fatha, tanween with dhamma, double dhamma, tanween with kasrah, double kasrah, indicating that there is actually a hidden nun sakina at the end. That's how it's pronounced, and that's how actually it is. Kitaban. Ba with fatha followed by a nun sakina. And we put it as double fatha. That's how we write it. We don't actually write the nun. Now, in the case of kitabun, we have a ba with dhamma followed by the nun sakina. It's written as a ba with double dhamma. And in case of kitabin, it's a kitab with kasra. With a nun added to it, it's represented as a ba with a double kasra. So, kitaban, kitabun, kitabin is how it's written. Kitaban, kitabun, kitabin is how it's pronounced. So, we conclude that the tanween adds a nun sakina to the end of the word. And this is why the rules of nun sakina, when we come to tajweed, would apply to tanween. Because tanween is actually having a nun sakina at the end of the noun. Now we'll move to another sign called the shadda. Shadda indicates duplicating a letter to emphasize it. And shadda, let's look, adds an emphasis upon a letter by duplicating it, where there are two consecutive instances of the same letter following each other. The first letter would be sakin. Let's take an example, the ba, ib. The sakin ba is followed ib, and it will stay still there. When we add to this a mutaharrik ba with fatha, ba, second vowel letter with fatha, with haraka, ba, the two together when added shows us the ba with shadda. So the shadda sign indicates a combination of two letters. First letter, which is sakin, having sukoon. Second letter, which is mutaharrik, having either fatha or dhamma or kasra. And in this case, it's the fatha. So we call this the shadda, or emphasis sign. Now, shadda, emphasis in Arabic, is any Arabic letter can be emphasized or stressed upon, and there are always, accordingly, three possibilities of emphasis, because we have three different vowels. So, the ba with a fatha gives us an emphasis, shadda with a fatha. A sukoon ba with a dhamma, ba, will give us an emphasis with a dhamma. And if we have two combined sukoon ba with kasra, we'll get an emphasis with a kasra. So the shadda can be, again, fatha based, or dhamma based, or kasra based. We keep all those three and add to them the shadda, indicating that they are actually two letters. So we don't write two letters, but we write one, but we represent it with this sign to tell us that behind this, there are two letters to be pronounced. To represent the harakats while writing, we use symbols, and such symbolization is called in Arabic tashkil. Now, the tashkil is not actually the haraka, it's the representation of the pronounced haraka in written text. The harakats, as we said, are created due to the vowels, the a, the u, the e, alif, waw, ya, and the tashkil used for basic harakats, the fatha, the dhamma, the kasra, are the symbols of a dash above the letter, and a waw above the letter, and a dash below the letter. So the first one, the dash above the letter, represents the fatha, the waw above the letter represents the dhamma haraka, and the dash below the letter is the tashkil that represents the kasra. The tanween, harakat, is represented by symbols of a double fatha for the tanween with fath, a double dhamma for the tanween with dhamm, a double kasra with for the tanween of kasr. Now for the shadda, we have the same thing. It's symbolized for the shadda with fatha by a shadda with the symbol of the fatha. For the dhamma, shadda with symbol of the dhamma. And for the kasra with shadda is the shadda with a symbol of kasra. Sometimes we can combine the two. We can combine the shadda and the tanween, and that's basically where we have a shadda and tanween and fatha. شدة تنوين and ضمة, شدة تنوين and كسرة. So these are the symbolization of تشكيل that represent the different harakat that are caused by the different vowels. The past minutes were an introduction to vowels and harakat, and it's an enough introduction for beginners of Tajweed and Arabic language. But those who would like to get a bit deeper level of information related to vowels and harakat, they can proceed for the few coming slides, which basically are not necessary at this stage for most of the people. It's your preference whether to proceed or to accept what you have just learned about vowels and harakat till now. So we're going to, from now on, take a deeper insight on the vowels and harakat. The vowels, alif, a, u, e, in Arabic there are similar letters. The hamza, which could be confused with the a, and the waw, which called the non-extendable waw, or al-waw al-ghayr al-maddiyya, which could be this again confused with the u, with the vowel waw. And for the ya, there is also a ya ghayr maddiyya, non-extendable ya, that for some it could be confused by the e, the vowel ya. So in the next few slides, we're going to demonstrate that difference between those. So we'll start with the difference between the vowel alif, vowel, and the hamza. In order to do that, we're going to give an example. Malik. Here is a vowel. This is an that goes from the jawf. So this is jawf letter, a vowel. While on the other hand, in yu'min, the hamza here, there is no extension of a sound coming from the jawf. So this is a hamza and it's not a vowel. So al-hamza in yu'min, is basically a throat letter. So the hamza is a throat letter while the a is a jawf vowel letter. Next distinction is between the waw vowel, oo, and the non-extensible waw, oo. The woo in yaqul means to say, yaqul. The oo here is a vowel, oo. So it's a jawf letter coming from the jawf, it's a vowel. Yawm, on the other hand, yawm, the aw here, is not a jawf letter, it's not a waw maddiyya. This is what we call oo غير المادية, يوم. First one is يقول, ooh. In this one, يوم. So basically, the second waw, the waw الغير المادية, is a bilabial letter compared to the first waw, which is a vowel. Now, same thing applies for the ya. There is a ya vowel, الضالين. This ya here is a jawf letter, e, and it's a vowel. Compared to the u in yu'min, this is basically a u غير مادية, which is a tongue letter and not a vowel. Now, we're going to differentiate another thing related to the vowel. Sometimes we call the vowels mad letters, and sometimes we call them lean letters. Mad in Arabic means stretch. So when do we call them mad letters, and what are the situations that makes us call them lean letters, and what's the difference between the two? We're going to learn this by example on the waw vowel. So we're going to take the first example where the waw here has a fatha above it. It doesn't have a sukoon. And as we said, having a fatha means adding a short a after the letter. Then what will happen here is for us to say wa si'at, and we'll never be able to say woo. It will be a totally different word. So once we apply fatha, we deprive the vowel waw from being able to be stretched, and it's no more a vowel, it is a waw غير مادية in this case, and this is why we cannot apply med. So وسعت, we cannot apply med. On the other hand, we're going to take two examples where we can apply med. The first one is يقول, and the second one is قوم. قوم, يقول. The difference between the two is I can stretch the first one more, يقول, versus a shorter stretch on the second one, قوم. I still can perform stretch. Now, what's unique about those two is that both of them has sukoon on the waw rather than the fatha. And accordingly, I'm able now to extend or stretch those two waws. So they are both vowels versus the waw here, which was a non-maddiya waw. So these two waws are huruf illa, vowels. Now, yet there is a difference. So the first waw has before the waw a dhamma. And dhamma is again a short vowel on the qaf, yaqu, which can be extended with the waw of the vowel and accordingly allows us to a long mad, long stretch, yaqul. So having a dhamma before the waw gives it more ability to be stretched because the dhamma is homogeneous to the waw, giving us a real mad letter. And that's why we call this a mad letter. Now, on the other hand, the letter before the waw in qawm is having a fatha, qawm, qawm. Yet the waw has a sukoon compared to the waw here, which has a fatha itself. Now, this allows us to stretch the qawm a little bit, but not to the level or the degree at which we were able to stretch the waw here in yaqul. Qawm, yaqul. So we call this second one a lean letter. So this is a lean, which is stretchable, and this is a mad, which is more stretchable. Now, in both cases, the waw was with sukoon versus the waw which didn't have a sukoon and had a fatha in the non-mad case, which we called the waw غير مادية. So we'll get more examples on mad and lean for all the three letters, the vowels, the a, and the waw, and the ya. We'll start with the a. The mad, we said, it is a vowel, still vowel with sukoon, preceded by a homogeneous letter with matching harakat. So to have a mad, the a should be preceded by by fatha, and the waw should be preceded by dhamma, and the ya should be preceded by kasra. So let's say first take examples about the alifs. As we said, it should be preceded by fatha, like qala. Qa has a fatha before the a. We can say qal. We can make a mad. Ar-Rahman. The meme here has a fatha. We can say Ar-Rahman. Similarly, Malik. The meme has a fatha. Malik. Now, same thing applies for the waw, but it should be preceded by a dhamma. And the example is يقول. The qaf has a dhamma above it. Tu, bu, both has a dhamma above them, the ta and the ba. And قلوبهم, the lam has a dhamma above it. Same thing applies for the ya, but it should be a kasra. So qeel, we can see that the ya here is a mad because it's preceded by a qaf with a kasra. Sin, nin, both has kasra before the ya. Alladhi, dhal has a kasra before the ya. So we have realized that all the three vowels, the a, u, e, could be mad letters, provided that it has a haraka that is matching it. Fatha before the alif, dhamma before the waw, kasra before the ya. So a, u, e, all of them can be mad letters. On the other hand, the lean can only be for the waw and ya, and the alif cannot be a lean letter. The reason is that we said the lean can happen only if you have a fatha before the vowel, and alif does not require a fatha before it, while the waw could have a fatha. We'll see an example. Qawm. The qaf here has a fatha before the u, which has sukoon. Qawm, this could be a lean letter. And saw, also the sin has a fatha before the sukoon on the waw. And in case of the ya, similar examples could be صيف. The ya here is a lean letter because it has a letter preceding it with a fatha above it. And similarly, الليل, the lam before the ya here has a fatha. So still vowels with sukoon preceded by a letter with fatha is the lean. Still vowel with a sukoon preceded by a homogeneous letter with matching haraka is a mad. So شروط المد واللين, conditions of mad and lean letters, will be summarized in this. Let's start with the first condition. For the vowel letter to be extendable, it has to be sakin, still. For example, let's take the ya here. It's a vowel because it has a sukoon on it. قيل. We can actually take that ya with sukoon and extend it. قيل. So the ya vowel is still has sukoon, therefore it can be stretched. On the other hand, this ya doesn't have a sukoon like that one, but rather has a fatha, and accordingly we cannot stretch it. We cannot say yimshun, because having the fatha is practically adding a short a after the ya, and accordingly we cannot combine the a and the ya. We cannot say ya yimshun, which would be an unacceptable mispronunciation. So we cannot extend the ya in that case. Similarly, in the waw here, which has a sukoon, we can extend it, can say yaqul, while this waw, because it has a fatha, we cannot say wasi'at. No, it's wasi'at. Yabshun, wasi'at. So both are not stretchable, they are not extendable because they have fatha on them, versus those which can be extended and stretched, qeel, yaqul, because the vowel has a sukoon on it. That was the first condition, having a vowel with sukoon on it. Second condition is we look at the letter preceding the vowel. And if the preceding letter has a homogeneous haraka, like for example, kasra before the ya, dhamma before the waw, then like this, yaqul, there is a dhamma before the waw, we call this vowel mad letter because we can extend it more, yaqul. While on the other hand, if the letter preceding the second vowel is not homogeneous and yet it is a fatha with either the ya or the waw, like qawm, there is a fatha before the second waw in qawm, then in that case we call this vowel letter a lean letter, and that is the case for both the waw and the ya. During this lecture, we have been introduced to the meaning of vowels, and we understood where their articulations come from. We understood the concept of haraka and sukoon, and then we related the vowels to different harakat, and we understood the meaning of fatha, dhamma, and kasra. And then we understood the meaning and definition of shadda, the duplicate letter, and the meaning of tanween and the reason for that. And then we realized the vowels that could be extendable, what can be extended, and those that are not. And then we identified the situations at which vowels are considered mad letters versus those situations at which vowels are considered lean letters. And with that, we reach the end for this lesson on vowels and harakat. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that بعونه وقدرته, that the Quran learning management system, برنامج الجامع لحفظة كتاب الله, would help you, inshallah, to improve your tajweed and improve your tilawa and help you in improving your recitation and help you, if you want, in memorizing the Quran and to help you understand the Quran in the proper way. As we reach the end, we ask Al-Mawla Azza wa Jal أن يتقبل منا هذا العمل. We ask Allah Almighty to accept this work from us, and we ask you to make dua for those who participated in making this work come to life and reach you. Hoping you all the best. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.